Yuba Sutter. This is Nate Black, your Sutter County Auditor Controller, and we're going to continue the conversation for the next hour. And we're all going to kind of toss our ideas in as we're walking through some of these issues. And I'm going to start off with an issue, and look forward to you guys jumping in as is convenient and appropriate. So what I wanted to, I missed last weekend. I apologize for that. Had a soccer game at 8 o'clock that had to meet that coaching responsibility. So I'm back. Well, we didn't get any CalPERS in last week, so I better get some in now. CalPERS has now cut a second jurisdiction's benefits, or better said, it's cut the benefits of retirees in a second jurisdiction now. So you'll recall that last year, early 2016, the city of Loyalton had its benefits cut by 60%. And that's a huge figure. This one's even larger. This is not a city. The entity is called San Gabriel Valley Human Services Consortium. And wow. It is a 63% cut to the retirees.
Isn't that special?
That is monumentally special.
How many people are in that?
Actually, this one is a large employer as compared to City of Loyalton. This is 170 former employees. Wow. So what happened, quick summary of what happened there is this is an organization that provides human service, as the name would infer, human services to individuals. So ranging from mental health services, regular just health services, and even some social services. So these kinds of things, 140 employees. And they're doing this in the community for quite some time. This article I'm drawing from, a couple of articles, but the one I'm referring to now is from Mercury News, and it's from August 7th, and written by Stephanie Baer. And so the individual that is being highlighted in this article is a 62-year-old Chino resident, and so she's losing 63% of her pay, which is about $1,500 or so in take home. And she worked at the agency for 27 years. So she works 27 years, anticipates having a quality retirement with her defined benefit pension, and she gets to her pension, her age, where she can start drawing on that pension, and boom, it's cut 63%. It's just an enormous, kind of stab in the back for those employees.
Why would they do that to such a small group? Don't they? Isn't it designed by having a large group such as CalPERS to spread the ups and downs of the investment business across all members? Isn't that?
Yeah, I mean that's what it does. That's what a pension plan does. Is it takes a number of members or participants, and it invests money for them, and then it hopes that at the end of the day that those individuals, as they retire, they have the sufficient assets set aside. And it's not. There's two different kinds of pensions at CalPERS, Andy. One is a risk sharing, and the other is just a more of a standard pooling. And so the risk sharing, they actually bear risk across the board, and they share the risks. Whereas, for example, I believe Yuba and Sutter County, we're in the non-risk sharing. We are our own entity and pool within the greater CalPERS pool. So anyway, this to me is really fascinating and sad. But where did this come to be? How did this situation present itself? Well, in 2014, the agency laid off all of its employees and shut its doors. And the reason being is there was a billing dispute with Los Angeles County. Now, if all you know is that, you go, well, shoot, what's the county? They're just shutting down the doors of this apparently worthwhile service called the LA Works was the service. And they just shut it down, right? Well, if you dig a little deeper, you find out that the billing dispute is a little bit more interesting than just that. What actually happened was this agency, the San Gabriel ... long name agency,
Elemental P.
Yeah, Elemental P. It overbilled the county $1 million. And when the county figured that out, it basically shut them off.
It said, we want that back. We'll be taking it today.
Right. But see, I think the county was so, I'm just putting a little bit of words in their mouth, but I believe that they were very much taken aback by the fact that they were overbilled. I mean, that's a really big deal. And the overbilling came about from inmate training.
So would I be precisely accurate in saying it was very similar to Loyalton when they stopped paying into CalPERS? CalPERS reacted with, well, we're going to have to cut the benefits.
Yeah, what happens at both of those situations is as soon as the agency, whether City of Loyalton or San Gabriel,
Elemental P,
when they stop contributing their required, biweekly or monthly payroll remission, they start this clock, and after about a year of that, they basically say, okay, we got to go to the table, and either we're going to shut you off or we got to come up with some other option. The other option is simply that the backstops. So in this case, for San Gabriel, there's a number of cities that came together in this consortium: West Covina, Azusa, Glendora, and Covina. And they go to those 4 cities and they say, hey, can you guys foot the bill, or can you foot a quarter, whatever it is that they try to make a deal on. And the cities and the county all said, no, thank you. And they said, we're going to just let that consortium and those employees hang. And they did. So I don't want to make it sound like CalPERS is the bad egg here. I'm very critical of a lot of what CalPERS does, but CalPERS is just administering in this role. I think it's really the problem is
but they pick
the
and
leadership.
Choose what they're supposed to do. They pick and choose who they want to do to invest with,
right,
instead of what brings the best return, and then they do this.
Right. Well, and I agree, and those are the issues that I like to bring up. But in this case, CalPERS simply was saying, hey, you stop paying, and our administrative protocol is to close the plan. Now, I was going to talk a little bit about closing the plan because to me, it's until that situation changes, no public agencies in the state can healthily leave CalPERS. That is, nobody can leave CalPERS and walk away with their head held high. They take licks beyond belief. And the way I can make this so palatable, I think, to the masses is if you look at Sutter County's unfunded pension liability, it's somewhere between $130 and $150 million for our 96,000 residents. 130 to 150 million. If we were to close our plan with CalPERS and say, you know what, we're no longer going to be participants, we're going to offer a 401A, 401K type defined contribution plan to our new hires going forward. Now that, of course, I just got to be real clear, and I always have to say this, that doesn't impact the current employees. They would still have their pension, okay? I want to be real clear.
Thanks for the union. Yeah, the union plug there.
Yes, and they're also my colleagues, and I work with them, and I want them to be understand that I'm not talking about taking their pension away, such as CalPERS and the San Gabriel ... did.
For this demonstration, this is hypothetical.
This is hypothetical.
So you're not picking on OSR.
Thank you. Yes. So anyway, the result is we close it down. Well, CalPERS says, okay, you're a closed plan. You're no longer contributing. We're going to go ahead and move all your money. I've talked about this before, Andy. We're going to move all your money from this pretty 7%, 7.5% yield pool, this pool that we think with the exposure that we put it to in the market that it's going to obtain a 7% yield, right? We're going to move all those monies, now that you've closed, out of that pool, and we're going to put it into a pool that is basically Fed treasuries. That's it. And so your assumed yield discount rate for the perpetuity of those assets held in this new smaller pool, or this pool that's in less risky investments, it's 2%. So instead of gaining or earning 7% each year on average in this regular pool that everybody's in, we're going to move you to this very conservative pool because you're no longer adding money into the plan. And because of that move from 7% discount rate to 2%, it has the impact of quadrupling or so your pension liability. For Sutter County, that's about what it does. So we'd go from 130 or 150 million to something closer to 550 million overnight.
Just write a check.
And they also say, and you got to write that check today. 550 million, and boom, now you're good. Now we can set this money aside and you can go and offer a 401A or 401K type plan to your employees. So it's there's no way out because not a single agency can ever pay that off.
Realistically, escaping the grip of CalPERS is what you're talking about, and it's incredibly frustrating. But if we did have like a Fort Knox of our own, we could do our own thing. But like you said, being trapped into it is frustrating at best.
Right, and I don't think that I don't know that it's a moral system, because we've locked in public agencies that are supposed to be sovereign in a way. Counties have sovereignty in certain things, and independence, I'll say, from the state, and so they're locked in. So a supervisor group from 50 years ago locked in every supervisor after that decision into perpetuity, unless that supervisor in the future, i.e. you guys, want to take the political hits of destroying the pension base system in your county, because that's the only way out. In other words, if you can't pay that $550 million, the only other option is to reduce the pension benefits to the retirees.
And they thought the mafia Vito the Collector was bad.
Sleeping with the fishes.
Yep. They
Luca
could
Brasi.
they could teach the mafia lessons on how to lock it solid, but that's wow.
So here's just a real quick quotation from the article that I think really sends this home to me. This again is the woman that was highlighted in this, and I want to say her name. Her last name is Mesa. It's Sandy Mesa. She says, "We didn't even know there was a problem until we got a letter from CalPERS." Oh, I'm sorry. This is Lynch, another individual. So we didn't even know there was a problem until we got a letter from CalPERS, who lives full-time in her recreational vehicle. Getting over that loss of faith, that's a tough one. That's the big issue. Furthermore, they did this is a quote, they did what they were supposed to do, and now the rug is being pulled out from underneath them. So my point is I'm not being quiet on this issue. When CalPERS is 68% funded, I'm standing before you on a Saturday morning. I'm trying to ring the bells here. This is a really important issue. Andy, Mr. Leahy, you guys are talking about economic growth, economic development. So here's how we tie in unfunded pension liabilities to that. Insofar as local government is poised to do any kind of economic growth, whether it's infrastructure work to provide the sewer, water, electricity for that big corporation to come in, as you were talking about earlier, whatever you want to do, you're going to be limited ever more as we move forward, as long as we don't address this pension issue, because the longer you don't address it materially or with significant impact, it makes the problem all the more worse. And I keep using the word exponentially worse. And so what happens is you get into that future economic consideration, and you're like, hey, I want to do some infrastructure, I want to do this or that. Well, you're not going to be able to, because there simply won't be any money. Every dollar discretionary that you have will go towards unfunded liabilities, whether pension or OPEB or otherwise.
Well, as you look at it, it's actually like the old adage of you get a penny a day and it doubles every day. Eventually, it's going to be, and it's actually not even eventually, it's just in a couple of months you're screwed. I mean, excuse my language, but a couple of months, it's like you can't keep up with it. The whole idea is of the unfunded liabilities is a responsibility we got to face, and we need to face it with. It's going to take a little bit of moxie.
Right.
Well, the key is finding an equitable solution.
That's right, because one of the biggest things you don't want to have to happen is this poor person who's sitting there after they've already done their work.
Right.
And because here's the thing: promises made, not promises not kept. And this is the biggest thing is we're from the government. We're here to help.
But the fact that they were promising things they could never deliver, that's a real problem. In fact, under a bill which is going through the Senate right now, former presidents would lose their unlimited tax-funded work expense accounts after leaving office under a bill that's in the Senate. And Trump is spearheading this event. It's ridiculous to continue to ask taxpayers to help foot the bill for former President perks at the time when they're raking millions of dollars from book deals, speaking engagements, and more. So, but I don't see a solution to that. And again, it stifles economic development because the never-ending payments that you have to make from the general fund and it limits the ability. Then your fees increase to help fund the government.
And they don't even tell you how fast they're going to increase. Like you, in your position, you understand that you'll get a letter saying, "Oh, we went up 25%," and then, by the way, we need that by the end of the month.
Right, and it's really grating to get a decision from CalPERS that says, "Hey, our assumed discount rate, that means the rate that we think that we're going to be able to obtain a yield at." So in the case of CalPERS, the last many years has been 7.5%. So, hey, everybody, we're going to put this money in the market. We're going to buy stocks, bonds, whatever we can buy legally. We're going to buy that, and then we're going to obtain a 7.5% yield on average into perpetuity, and that's how we're going to base all of our actuarial assumptions on, the debt, everything. Oh, you know what? We're going to have to bring that down actually over the next 3 years to 7%. Mm-hmm. And even though our outside consultants, this was just last year, even though our outside consulting firm that we paid an enormous amount of money says 6% is really a more achievable yield, we're going to go ahead and not do 6 because that's too far down, and we're going to do 7 instead. And as we walk from 7.5% down to 7%, we're also going to start not investing in things like the XL pipeline, the Keystone XL pipeline. So it's really grating for them to, on the one hand, have to reduce. They're compelled to reduce the yield that they think they're going to be able to get on the assets, while on the other hand, they're taking out really good, high-yielding assets from their investment pool that they're lawfully able to invest in.
Can't they be held accountable?
Fiduciary breach. I mean, I've said it to my supervisors. This is the core fiduciary breach, and it could result in a suit. And actually, the supervisor, I had 2 of them in front of me, but the one of them said, "Oh yeah, we should sue them. This is immoral."
Well, one of the biggest challenges is whenever somebody, this is what we're going through in our world now. Whenever somebody allows their political views to lead the decisions they make in a business asset or a decision making process, because this is what it's based on. It's based on, well, we don't feel that this is a positive thing to be in.
Right.
And when the numbers say this is the best thing to go to, so when I heard they were divesting from coal,
yes, coal.
When they were divesting from coal, when our leader of our country is just opening up the coal again, it's political moves, it's posturing.
Yeah, I mean, President Obama said in the very beginning, or his Treasury Secretary, was it Chu, I think, or I can't remember, but he says, "Oh, we're going to make it through regulatory schemes. We're going to make it so expensive for coal industry to do business in this country that they're going to shut their doors."
Yep.
What kind of government is shutting the doors of lawful private sector enterprises? That mean horrible.
Unfortunately, this is not the only church in town. There are so many other things. I've got one here that the L.A. school district lost 13,000 students this year and are going to lose 150,000 between 2011 and 2021. But we have so many disasters. I mean, it's like we got 5 Titanics going down at the same time. We've got a school system that turns people out, and 47% can graduate. But now it's up to like 74 because they decided, hey, we won't test the results. It's like the old saying, if you can't duplicate the results, only do the test once. And that's where the youth of today are dealt a bad hand, in that we expect them to be able to go out and get a job, yet we don't prepare them for that. And we do it by political correctness and loose moral code. And, excuse me, they're called kids for a reason. I look at these people and they have great discussions with their children that are about 4 years old. Excuse me, the kid does not understand that stuff. It's Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah. A little whack on the diaper and it gets their undivided attention. And, the problem all stems back to the family, the destruction of the family, because it's without a moral compass and without guidance from 2 parents. And for those of you who don't agree with me, that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. But it's worked for thousands of years. The 10 Commandments have worked for thousands of years, not the 10 suggestions, which is what they've become.
Right. Two-parent families are so important, and I'm not even going to get into what the makeup is of those parents, but having I like having two different parents because the differences actually make for a wonderful unit.
I can tell you for one thing for sure that as the kids were growing up and going to school, me and my wife were the exception to the rule because we've been married for 36 years now, and so we ended up with 3 of our own kids, but for some reason we ended up raising 16 teenagers.
My aunt was the same way. She was just kids are starved for actual affection. Kids need love. And without it, they become mean, nasty, and I've got books on entitlement. I've got books on, there's a book out now about the black people saying, "Stop helping us. You're not helping us," and the sense of entitlement and the fact that they've done studies. I went to the sheepdog presentation. And they've proven that if you take these kids away from the video games and the phones and the violence on television for 30 days, you cut the violence in half.
Well, the same things applicable when you improve the community that we're in. So I find it really fascinating.
People are looking for the community improvement. It has to come from within. And what you see right there is the culmination of a school system with lack of morals, lack of ethics, and it's the money. People used to tell me, it's the money. Excuse me, it's the principle of the thing.
I just knew all this was going to come back to the breakfast table because that's where everything happens. The breakfast table, the lunch, and then the dinner table. And if everybody's had dinner together at a dinner table as a family unit, some things would change.
Lots.
Yeah. So, what's your idea of the future of Yuba County, or not Yuba County, Sutter County?
OSR.
In what way?
As far as
keep it.
the potential for growth and what you see the county doing.
Well, I really appreciate the question, and I'm not from the community of Sutter. I grew up in Sacramento County, from Orangevale, Folsom area, although I played high school against Yuba City Honkers each of my 4 years.
And that wasn't fun, was it?
No, Honkers are, man, especially the football team. Oh, heck of a football team. And that was back when we had Nevada Union and Yuba City Honkers, and I went to Casa Roble. And those two teams actually in Grant. So Grant Union, Nevada Union, and Yuba City was a heck of a 3. But this isn't a sports show. So moving on. Sutter County is a wonderful place to live. I just want to say that I'm not from there, but I've really taken it as my own. I really like the land. I like the people. They're very salt of the earth. It's a little bit more my political persuasion up here than it was in Sacramento. But to your question, we are poised economically for wonderful things in Sutter County. What Sutter County has to offer is some of the most rich, amazing agricultural land in the valley. We're bisected by 2 awesome, strong rivers that sometimes are scary, but with the Sacramento, with the bypass, and with the Yuba Feather, we just have a ton of natural resource potential. So as long as we continue to respect our farmers and our agricultural community, and we keep governmental policies that protect them and keep that economic engine going, I believe we have nothing but strength in our future. We do have to I shouldn't say do. We do have to be cognizant of economic growth, though, outside of ag. We have to also provide the ability for some bedroom community growth down in the lower Sutter area. Sutter Point down there, I think, is going to be that ultimately could even take over Yuba City in terms of population growth.
I actually foresee a Cupertino situation with the South extension.
There you go. Yep.
Well, with the growth in Sacramento, it's a great place to be, Sutter County and Yuba County, because we are going to be the San Fernando Valley of Sacramento,
right?
And wasn't really fond of Kevin Johnson for a while, but he made some changes that are causing Sacramento to explode. And the question is, do we have the management? Do we have the people there to be able to guide it properly? Because you look back on some of the decisions that were made say, like just looking at Bullard's Bar, which was 50 years ago, and probably in the area about 60 years ago, it was being formulated, that plan by people who didn't even know what computers were at that point in time. And, the
a
question,
true leap of faith.
question
Right.
is, do we have the visionaries available for that?
Well, and man, long-term planning, right? I mean, one thing that I just love about your example is 50 years ago, those people did some really wonderful things for 50 years into the future.
Yep.
That long-term look is what I think is sorely lacking. And I could segue into a little bit of my next topic, but how are we doing on break?
You're listening to 1410 AM, The Patriot. Every time I do that, he wants to record it.
He's got a great voice.
That's top of the hour. That's required. Is that all that's required? Okay.
I got you
Well,
covered,
we
Andy.
can continue. Nice part about this being my show, I determine when the commercials come on. So, yeah. So
Hey, well, okay. Well, my segue was, it's maybe a poor segue at this point, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about the homeless issue.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Bring that up. I mean, that's like
thank you. Thank you for bringing us back on course.
You got it. Well,
You're killing me.
so in Sutter County, I'm going to try to give you the quickest summary version as I can as to where we're at with the homeless issue. So this started, say, a month ago with the administrator making the decision to go forward with a recommendation of the board that we're going to spend a little over $1 million, and in the first tranche for the next 7 months, and we're going to do a temporary tent homeless shelter encampment over by the airport. I'm told something like Whitaker Hall or thereabouts, and that they estimate they'll have a couple hundred to 400 people there. Then they were going to spend another little less than $1 million building a temporary kind of halfway house sort of thing that would be actual brick and mortar. And all of that really didn't get us past June 30 of next year. In other words, for it to be called a long-term homeless plan, management plan, it actually only had about an 8-month look to it, from November when they were hoping to open it to June 30. It was only funded through then. And so I kind of was asking myself why that's the case. Why are we rushing to do this big homeless plan? We haven't done anything in a number of years or perhaps ever in a big way for the homeless. So why are we rushing? And the response is, well, it's winter coming, and we want in case there's another high water event and everything. And I say, okay, but what about all of the prior year high water events? Why is this one so compelling that we have to rush to a homeless situation or to a homeless solution? And when you're spending the public's money, you have to be so very diligent with each penny and dollar spent. You need to provide justification far greater than any CEO does to his board of directors in a private business. You need to really sell this thing.
It's beyond the return on investment or anything like that. It's so when we're dealing with the human factor, and this is the part when you're dealing with the human factor and the homeless, it's going to take an unconventional method to actually work a solution to lift a lot of the people up. Now, people coming up with solutions a lot of times don't have experience living under a bridge. They have no clue of what it feels like or what they're going through. A lot of guys say that people want to live that way. Some do, not many. Because it all boils down to a really philosophical thing of lack of self-esteem and they lack of self-confidence, and then they get to a point where they can't get in or out, or they have no more hope.
Right, stuck.
Well, that's the problem, and I think I got kicked out of the consortium because of that. Is that we didn't provide hope for those people, because without hope, all they did was they provided the needs for them to make them more dependent.
Right, and I think that's why in our history the greatest philanthropists have always been the religious institutions. Those are the groups that are best poised, I think, personally.
Well,
and
it makes sense, and I actually can appreciate the belief because, from the standpoint of living in the back of your car and not having anywhere to go and hiding behind a church or sleeping there and having a wife, a kid, and a baby, I might have a little experience with that. And then when you approach it from what worked and how I got from there to where I'm at now, some things changed and thinking was involved.
You know, going back on that, there was hope. You could go out and you could get a job. You could work for somebody and sweep the floors or whatever. They didn't have all the regulations and the requirements. So you could work and build yourself out of that. Nowadays, you've got to have insurance. You've got to have this and the other things that the government requires.
Well, we find ourselves, we're having to try to legislate personal accountability. And when you try to legislate personal accountability, it's nothing more than the nanny governance.
Right. Well, and that's kind of my point of government is really not best positioned to do this kind of work. Look, the services for mental health, for social services, i.e. welfare, those are already in existence. They are buildings you can walk to, both Yuba County, Sutter County, you can begin that process. And I'm not saying that it's easy or anything like that. I'm not, and I've never had to do it myself. But I'm saying that they exist. The second part, the part I think you're bringing up, is the mental component, the self-esteem, the loss of self-confidence. And my point was, and maybe I didn't say it very well, was that I think that that's where the moral institutions, i.e. churches, they can help lift people, like the 12-step program for alcoholics or for drug addicts in general. That I understand that those are much more successful than purely saying, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. It's not good for your body. There's something they're missing up in their brain. It's not only a physical need for
cognitive dissonance. And that's what it boils down to is we sit here on the radio and try to tell people the truth. If they don't want to hear it, that's not true. That's not true. My brother had to go to surgery that his arm was screwed up. He just got over a surgery. He said, the doctor said, you got to go back. He goes, no, I don't.
Right. Well, so just to make sure that I state the reason why I brought this up clearly is my interest here from a fiscal standpoint within the government is that we spend our money very thoughtfully and lawfully. And so this is brand new for Sutter County. We've never spent this kind of money. I don't think we've ever really gone down this path with homeless folks ever. So it's just really incumbent that we do this right, we do it thoughtfully, and that we spend these millions of dollars, if we are going to do that, very, very well and have easy to measure metrics and steps involved to make sure that the public is along with us the whole time, because they're backstopping this whole endeavor. It is their money that we're spending, and they should have confidence that we're spending it well. So to wrap this up is this coming up week is in between the board meetings, so there's no board meeting coming up, and I'm hoping to see this new staff report from the county for the October 24th board meeting. So not this week, but the following week, we will have the board meeting October 24th dealing with the homeless issue, and it'll be the next iteration of the CAO, the County Administrative Office's recommendation to the board. Scott Mitnick, yes. So
okay, we got a caller here
that
wants to ask a question. Let's we'll just let you. Okay, let's go ahead with caller. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, go ahead, caller.
Rumor has it is that they're not going to build a brick and mortar. That they're going to. HHS wants to take over Whittier Hall and the Sheriff's Posse Arena to put the homeless camp.
Right, and
Whittier Hall has just been redone for the rentals, and that's the moneymaker for the renting of the hall for the Sheriff's Department.
right, and the status of the plan is up in the air at the moment, and so I'm not certain. This is Nate. I'm not certain if the plan is still to be at Whitaker Hall and or the Sheriff's Posse Arena, or if they have moved off of that location. I've also heard just this last week that there's again discussion about Butchie's Pool, or what was formerly known as Butchie's Pool, being taken over and used as a brick and mortar temporary housing facility.
There's always a lot of
Now
discussions.
we're going to provide them with a swimming pool.
That's right.
Okay.
There's always a lot of discussions happening. That's part of the process of finding out where we're going to go.
Right.
So when we talk about, and I thank the caller for calling.
That's right.
When we talk about rumors, well, you know what? I consider the source because I don't know.
Right.
I don't know, and when the ink is dry on the paperwork, that's when we actually know. Now I hate to say it that way, but
This is their program, and I wanted to let Nate field this because it's a big step, and we're learning about it over in Yuba County, and we just want to make sure that's where it really goes astray is with the rumor situation, and without the information coming through.
Right. And so from a county administrator standpoint, transparency, communication, all the better, the more you can do on that. Here's a last point, and I conveyed this to the administrative office because I didn't want them to move forward with it because I felt this was really egregious. But on this 3-page staff report, which is being completely redone, and I want to give kudos to the county administrator for going back to the drawing board and doing a more comprehensive. Again, I haven't seen it yet. It's going to come out this week, I hope, but I'm anticipating a much more comprehensive recommendation from him to the board. But just to point out what I conveyed to them is at the very end of the 3-page staff report, it says, this is a new thing in the staff report for you guys over in Yuba County. I don't know if this is enticing to you, but Scott put in place, Scott Mitnick, our CAO, an area that's called Countywide Goals and or Top 10 Priorities Compliance. Countywide Goals and or Top 10 Priorities Compliance. So he and the board and others established top 10 priority in a strategic planning session earlier this year. And so on each staff report, they are now requiring that the department heads and himself indicate which of these 10 long-term goals they're achieving or working towards in their staff report. Okay, so with that, it says, this is countywide top 10 priority number 2 from a list of 10. Number 2, develop and implement a long-term homeless management plan, in parentheses with measurable target dates, in parentheses, by December 31st to provide quarterly updates. So although this 3-page staff report was well before December 31st, 2017, so that date is still live, a 3-page staff report to appropriate $1,069,000 is for the next 7 months or 8 months is not a long-term plan. I do not appreciate you saying a long-term plan is being met or that goal is being met when you're only talking about 8 more months.
Yeah, well,
and it's brand new. We've never done this before. We have nothing to look to and go, hey, well, remember how it worked last time, and so it's gonna. No, we have no. It's completely brand new. This should be a 2, 3, 4 year plan with from A to Z, temporary to mid to long term. I mean, if you're going to go at it and you're going to call it a long term, make it a long term.
Sure. Yeah. Have they? I don't know if they work with our homeless consortium that we have on our side of the river.
They do work with Scott Thurmond.
Yeah, well, me and Scott go round and round. I think that we're getting to an entitlement, and the problem with entitlements, my kids have less rights than the homeless, and that shouldn't be. And back to a conversation you guys had a little earlier, my feeling and my perception, and I've driven around more cities than I guarantee anybody else has, is that 80 to 90% of the homeless want to be there, and they want to be there for a reason. The reason is they don't have to follow rules. They don't have to do anything. They can you just show up here and. Unfortunately, Scott and the rest of them, they take 1 or 2 families that, deserve to be helped, and they hold this up as this is all people, and that's a typical liberal attitude. And, it blows me away. Excuse me. I'm sorry. There are certain people that need to be helped, and you need to sort through the fly stuff and the pepper and separate it, because you're creating an entitlement. And once you give things, people have a hard time giving them up. It's just like Obamacare. Obamacare was a stupid move by people who had no common sense or practical experience. You take a community organizer. You take, Scott, what have you done in the real life? You know, people say, well, information is power, or knowledge is power. Okay? Knowledge is not power. Knowledge is information. Experience is power. Okay? You've got people who can't even tie their shoes, shouldn't play with matches in certain managerial positions in our neighborhood. And, you know, that they learn on our dime, and they don't learn. They go with these mythical dreams of nirvana, and they've never had to make a living. And I believe that every elected person should have held a job and actually gone out of business once or twice to kind of give you a perspective on what your decisions mean. Because Mr. Metnick is hawking Sutter County for how many millions of dollars?
Well, we'll see this week what the new plan is. But I want to draw an analogy to what you just said, Andy. No, it's great. What you just said about your child has less rights than, say, for example, a homeless individual. I want to draw the simile over to what about out-of-state citizens of this country trying to get in? Coming over here to California to our wonderful schools, trying to get an education.
No.
The illegal immigrant now in the state can get in-state tuition, where the boy or girl or young man or young woman from Reno that wants to come over to go to Sac State cannot. That is abhorrent to me, that we would.
Well, President Brown has the right to. No, I'm sorry.
Right, so in-state tuition should be provided to lawful in-state citizens.
Well, that brought us to the next topic that we don't even want to touch, and we're now a sanctuary state, like it or not. So we're going to have to go somewhere with this and figure it out on another topic.
What do you think that does to our counties?
Well, unfortunately, just my little tidbit on this is I just feel so badly for our men and women in blue that are trying to protect us. They're trying to enforce the law and keep everybody safe, and now they are totally hamstrung from questioning folks, if not asking for ID, things along those lines. So the lawlessness will continue and will ramp up as opposed to the opposite. And the bleeding hearts in Sacramento, they're going to make us bleed.
Well, we really, yeah.
The radio listener, you cannot appreciate the look I get.
Luckily, Mount Hoot isn't
isn't
that high up. Otherwise, I might be tempted to go up. You know, it's so frustrating for us here on a county level that we're working with what we've got, and we have people with no common sense or practical experience directing these things, and
right.
Sheriff Durfee used to have a saying that you can't arrest your way out of the criminal behavior, because and 109 killed us, 47, put another nail in the coffin, and then we just did another one. And Sheriff McGinnis, I was at a presentation where he was talking, and until those three things are changed, we are going to be hamstrung, and we're going to become a lawless state here. And I don't, do you see a way out of that one?
No.
I don't envy the new sheriffs that we're looking to elect. We've got an election for a sheriff in Sutter County and Yuba County, and I think Wendell Anderson's pretty much gonna do it in Yuba County, and I don't envy him in that we had a thing with the marijuana grow, and legally there's only certain things that we can do to stop disruptions within the supervisor meeting, and these people flaunt the law, and anyhow.
I wanted to give a quick public service announcement in that this week, and we'll just see how this goes. But this week I had a bit of a scare with my family. What happened is, and I'll to keep it a little bit summary version, but my wife and children were at the parking lot shopping over at the Walmart, Home Depot parking lot, and there was a very scary incident where a couple of individuals were stalking my wife and scared her so bad to the point that as she was getting back out into her vehicle and putting our kids in the vehicle from the store, that they kind of spooked her and had with two different vehicles. They were kind of on her van, and anyway, so she literally jumped in the back of the van with the kids, locked the door, and then climbed into the passenger seat. Was able to get away. Well, lo and behold, one of the two vehicles followed her over to another location where she was going to drop off our daughter to do some dancing. And this individual then spoke to my wife as she was completely losing her stuff, because now this person shows up again at the next location, and really frightened her. And he says, "I'm watching you." That's what he says to my wife as he drives by her and then parks a few vehicles away. And so it was only because of some really great, tough women at that location. They came out and they basically scared the person off and got him to go away. But we got the license plate number and we got a video of him. So I'm pursuing this with law enforcement.
Did you file? Yeah.
Yeah, we filed a police report with YCPD, and we're hoping that there's going to be some action there. But the reason why I wanted to bring it up was just to warn mothers and young women out there, especially women with children. These people are sick, and they will prey on you. They find you to be an easy target. Often you're so busy taking care of your kids or holding the groceries that you just got, they can come up and do something without you being aware. And I just want you mothers out there to have those eyes in the back of your head. If you can't ensure your safety, do not go to the store. You wait for your husband, boyfriend, mother, father. Get help.
911 really needs to be called more often, and because. And women need to be taught how to defend themselves, how to get away from these guys. You get the CS, the spray gel, not the spray, but the spray gel, and there's a sheepdog presentation on video and YouTube, and you can go and get that. And it's important for people to know that in today's society, you're the moral, just people working in this community have to stand up and actually protect themselves. You can dial 911, but it takes approximately 2 to 5 minutes for a cop to get there, and a lot can happen in 2 to 5 minutes. And I'm not an advocate for everybody being armed, but there comes a point to where you have to draw a line, and I'm sorry that this happened.
Me too. But Andy, I'm trying to take this as a positive incident, right? Nothing did happen ultimately other than fright. And so how can we be more prepared and safe in the future? And also talking about it right now on air, I hope that this also results in other women and young people being aware. You got to protect yourself. You got to be situationally aware of what's going on around you.
I will talk to Wendell, and we'll have a 15-minute on what do you do and what if.
There you go.
Okay,
yes,
what
yes.
if scenarios, because I was in the reserves for a while, and you always did what if scenarios, because it's not the time to do it when it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And as a pilot, we had books that I learned about flying from that, and one of those saved my life. And it's unfortunate we have to do that, but because of the entitlement mentality, because of the lack of moral compass that these people grow up with.
Yes.
And that was a funny thing. When I was debating, sometimes I didn't even think of those things.
Right.
Okay, I want to close with what we normally close with. I don't want that cut off at all, but because it's very relevant to today's society. But thank you again, Nate. And
thank you, guys.
Mike,
real pleasure.
We're going to have to sit down and do that. We will do that for you.
Awesome.